Armada Book 4 Chapter 10 The Renaissance Part 1. Heading back to the Maccabee First Colony capital from their engagement with the Martians and Greenos. At Andrew S. Bridge. Sir, did you know that this Maccabee affair has so far got us almost 60,000 ships? Ellie said. That's a lot of ships. That's more than the whole Hop network. And we are not even finished yet. If you look at it, to bring the Maccabee galaxies to our network, which is roughly 18 BLY away, we would need at least 300 Hop ships. That's a single line. If you want 50 lines to cater to the 4 colonies, that's 15,000 ships. Add the hops you need to connect the 4 colonies and their alien friends, maybe another 15,000. If you continue the 300 hops to the Talonauts and Tosbans, that's another 10,000. Add another 10,000 to scatter around the network. And then of course, not all the 60,000 will be of use. So there I'd say we have just enough. But then again Tony will need all the help he can get. Ellie added. Boss, we have to retrain the Maccabees to understand how we do things. Their ships are not as strong as ours, so I would recommend they build new ships using our technology and designs. It would probably take at least half a year to get their people up to speed. I don't know their shipbuilding capabilities, but I'm sure they can muster 1,000 a year. Linda said. There are still a lot of loopholes to fill. There are the tippets and pockets of enslaved population that must be freed immediately. Then I would like the Maccabees to deal with the Greenos and Martians themselves. Something I think they would rather not address for the moment. But then we would need time for them to be up to speed. Andrew said. I can give them all my ships for the moment. Gantley said. I think Gantley's point of view is correct. We give them 1,500 ships crewed by a third of our people with our captains of course. And train their armada under these 1,500 ships. Then when they are ready we pull our troops out so they can do it themselves. Andrew said. Once they finish the job, they return the ships to us of course. Gantley said. Of course. Andrew said. Tonin, Sarudam and Junie beamed in. Ari, Debbie and Lasheen walked in from the mess hall. Ellie told the new group they would be giving 1,500 ships to the Maccabees so they can deal with the enemy by themselves. But we need to tow the ships to our network to form a direct link, which I would like should be 60 lines or about 18,000 ships. Then we need to tow almost the same number all the way to Manpat's area, another 18,000. Then we have to tow around 12,000 to bring the 4 colonies together. Tonin said. They looked at each other. I just told you that. Ellie said. She's thinking maybe Tonin has become deaf or something. Tonin did not even listen. I think we can just give the Maccabees 1,200 ships with half of the crew being our crew. The Maccabees do have about 1,000 ships more than they can use to engage the enemy. It's not like they will give their ships to us, and I don't know if their ships can tow 10 ships. We would still have 1,000 ships remaining to tow 10 each of those enemy ships into position. So it's achievable then. Andrew said, thus closing the conversation. If Tony were here, none of this would be their concern. We would be arriving at the capital planet of the 4th colony in 8 hours. Olive said. You guys better take a rest, sleep, eat, dress up well. It's going to be one of those long days again. Olive, tell all the ships and crew to take a rest. Andrew said. They understood and they all beamed out. When Andrew's ships arrived within beaming range of the 4th colony. Roden is at the bridge. Olive said. Why does he always arrive to wake me up? Andrew asked. Roden said it's afternoon in the planet. Andrew took his sweet time and after half an hour he was in front of Roden. Hey buddy, what's up? I apologize if I always come whenever you're sleeping. But it's my way of catching you. I can also come to your ship if you like. Next time. Do you know that you have about 60,000 ships that we can use as hops all the way to Manpat's, right? We talked about it. And Tonin correctly presumed we would give the Maccabees 1,200 ships to get the remaining ships of the Martians and Greenos. So we only have 1,000 ships to tow the hops into position. I have 300 supply ships that can help in the towing activities. That would mean we can give the Maccabees 300 additional ships. Wait, let's have breakfast or early dinner for you. Sure, let's walk to the mess hall. At the mess hall Jenny and Hyru appeared. Olive appeared as well. They waited until Andrew and Roden sat at the captain's table. Andrew does not usually use the well-appointed captain's table, but he thought it was okay since Roden was there. 2 cups of coffee appeared in front of Roden and Andrew. Andrew greeted the two. Have a seat, Jenny, Tiffany, please. Coffee, tea maybe? He gestured to the chairs across him. Jenny sat and coffee for me. Tea for Tiffany. That rhymes, Andrew thought. That rhymes, Roden said to Jenny. I just thought of that, Roden, Andrew told Roden. Jenny looked at Tiffany then at Olive. In a few seconds, Olive beamed their usual in front of them. Jenny started, Sir, we have identified several thousand collaborators and criminal operations. Wait, Andrew, you were still investigating the Maccabees? Roden asked. It's a continuation of our investigation of their spy network. Apparently Jenny found a lot more. Andrew said and sipped his coffee while looking at Jenny. Sir, they have 2 planets, Seton and Balon, 60 MLY away from the first colony where they keep human Max, Inky and 2 alien species as slaves, test subjects and test communities. There are 2 more planets, one in the 4th colony and another in the 1st colony that is so messed up. Jenny said. Hyrule added, there are 3 Maccabee groups that came from the 1st, 2nd and 4th colony, apparently affected by the rock, running the criminal organizations which collaborated with the enemy Maccabee fleet. With the defeat of the enemy, they took flight out of the 1st, 2nd and 4th colonies and consolidated their forces in Seton, one of the 2 planets under a combined leadership. A hostage situation? Andrew asked. For Seton, yes. The other one, Balon, could have been a simple beam out. What complicated the situation is that some of the human Macs have mutated and we are not sure if they pose a medical threat. We have to investigate the whole populace before we make our move. Jenny said. We can get intel from the data systems of the 3 criminal groups on what they did to the slaves. We have moved on and took the liberty of tagging all the Maccabees involved. Hyrule added. What about the 2 messed up planets? Andrew asked. Sir, one planet, Sarbon, which means peaceful, is actually in a state of revolution, no leadership since the flight of the Imperial forces, just several small fiefdoms, people are up in arms wherever you look. The ongoing revolution seems to have a united leadership of late, although we have not made any effort to contact them. The other one is Rinia, was a test planet for a plague intended against the Maccabee and Maquis physiology. They have several mass test areas on the planet, all horrific, millions dead, in about half the planet, all with waiting test subjects. These people are not only crazy, they are heartless. Jenny said. Hyrule added, in Rinia, we do not recommend a beam out of the remaining test subjects, and like Balon, where there is a medical threat, in Rinia we have to be careful about the plague. Right now our orders are to shoot any ship going out of the planet. Nothing gets out. We have deployed 30 probes around the planet. Jenny continued, in Sarbon, we recommend isolation. Nobody gets in or out. Then we remove all the fiefdom leaders and their minions and beam them with the criminals. Then start feeding the people, providing services, and start organizing them again. The first part, the Armada can do. All are hungry and have medical problems. The Maccabee can take over running the planet after our operations. We have apprised Linda of the situation and she said she will handle the initial refugee response but expects the Maccabees to take over after a day. The beam out of the fiefdom leaders and their armies will commence immediately after the Macs finish with the tagging operations, and this will be done by Hyrule's ships. We estimate we need at least 28 hours before we finish tagging. Once we get all the criminals in one planet we can go on and have the Trunties read their minds, but we have to wait for your order, sir. Hyrule said. Very good, Jenny. Tiffany. Olive, tell Ellie to follow us with her science ships. Let's go to the 2 planets, Balon and Seton first, then we'll deal with the other 2. Andrew said. I'll go with you, Andrew. Roden said. We can be there within beaming range in 33 hours. Olive said. Olive, tell GX1, Gantley and Tonin to follow. Jenny, did you tell the Maccabees about this? Only on your order, sir. Olive, tell Bronny and Hilm to come over, maybe they may want to accompany us to the target area. Don't tell them anything yet, I will tell them myself. 100 of our ships are in the first colony and they are continuing their trace of people involved with the criminal elements, and it seems that some of the council members in the first colony are in on the deal. Jenny said. It's a prelude to an invasion coming several months ahead. They have the option to choose which colony is ripe for the picking. But why the first? There must be something there that's not in the second or third colonies. Roden said. I agree. And we can expect a lot of howling from the politicians. Andrew said. I believe they would finish tagging the first colony criminals in 36 hours. Hyrule said. Bronny and Hilm appeared. Great leader Roden, I did not know you have already arrived. Bronny said. Good to see you, Bronny. Hilm? I intended to come early to be with Andrew. Coffee or tea? Coffee for me. Bronny said. Ice cream for me, chocolate. Hilm said. Andrew nodded to Jenny and Jenny apprised them of the situation. So Colonel Phillips, you found this out while Andrew engaged the Marsons and Greenos? Bronny asked. Yes, sir. The network was larger than we thought and we feel we have not yet found the whole extent of the infiltration. We have only established the connections we can see and only in 4 planets near the first colony. Once we start reading their minds we can get a much better picture. Jenny said. It could be tricky, politically I mean. Bronny said. We treat it as part of the engagement process we are continuing to do. To rid your colonies of the enemy, infiltrators, and spies. And the criminal acts they have been subjecting several species in are really way off the charts. We have to deal with mutated Maccabees, Macs, and other species. Maybe they may already have developed toxins to kill us. Andrew countered. That is scary. Roden said. First we isolated planets, Jenny did this. Nothing goes in or out including all forms of communication. Andrew said. Jenny added, I have ordered 100 ships to establish a blockade and communication scramble with several dozen probes around the planets. Olive communicate all these to all our ships. I already have Andrew. As soon as you said it. I think we should start reading their minds to see the extent of their operations. Roden said. We only have 1 Crimson in my ship and 210 Trunties. Jenny said. I have 1 Crimson while Ellie has 3, Gantley and Tonin each has 4. Maybe around 10,000 Trunties. Andrew said. The organization in the planet has over 200,000 criminal elements and easily another 300,000 would probably be involved when we start reading their minds. And they could be hiding in hundreds of planets. Jenny said. We can finish in 2 days if they all are here. Olive said. Let's start with the 3 criminal groups, their leaders first then we go down the line. Roden said. Jenny nodded, very well Sir Roden. We will start right away with those already tagged. Several of our Mac commanders will use your Crimson Olive while I will monitor the one in my ship. I better move the festivities 3 days later. I will tell them that Roden and you cannot make it. Brawny said. I guess we have some sort of conclusion by then. Andrew said. Olive I want to go back to the 4th Colony Council building. Hilm, stay with Andrew and Roden. Brawny said. Yes sir. Hilm said and just about finished his ice cream. Olive let's tow some ships so we can lay them out all the way to the 1st colony. Have some Talonauts work on the ships. Have them install at least 1 TP and a portable cloak. Once we put them in place, Jenny's hop ships can join the main armada. Yes Andrew. They have already started with more than 100 ships before you left for the Marsens ships. The Talonauts have installed 2 Fire Dawn generators per ship. We can tow these into position. The Norsets are installing the TPs and communications relays. The Macs have installed the portable cloaks and are helping the Talonauts tear the walls down. The Hops will reach the 1st colony planets in 12 hours, way ahead of our arrival. Very good Olive. Andrew said. The next day Andrew's ships were within beaming range of the 2 planets where the criminal elements hold up. Andrew, Ellie wants you and Roden to come over to her ship. Olive said. Roden and Andrew beamed to Ellie's bridge to see Linda, Lachine, Hilm, Brawny, Tonin and Gantley, Jenny and Hyru. Sir, thank you, now that you're here. Tom please. Ellie said. She gestured and several large floating screens appeared around them. Ellie allowed them to gaze at the screens for a few minutes. This is incredible. Are those Macs? Linda asked. Before them were various scenes of the slaves on the ground. All showed deformities of one form or several forms in one entity. Even the Maccabees, although similar to normal human form, showed mutations as if mixed with other species. Some Macs have scales in their faces, some have 4 arms, some arms have 6 or more equal-length fingers. Some Maccabees were more than 12 feet tall with extremely muscular bodies. Some of these tall Maccabees have black skin. There was a Marinti-like species with Maccabee faces or Maccabees with Marinti bodies. Most of the creatures were so deformed it would be hard to define their basic species. Some creatures had extensions that were neither Mac, Marinti, or Maccabee. There were large 6-legged creatures with Marinti heads. The variations appear to be a result of several decades of experimentation. It's like a zoo. The whole planet is a zoo. Andrew said. From our initial mind readings, the leaders wanted to come out with a species that have very specific and presumably better qualities for specific purposes like ground warfare or simply better slaves. They started their work more than 120 years ago. Jenny explained. Some of those do not show it, but their brains have implants that enable another person to make it do things. The mind readings revealed that they were successful in making them do regular activities but not to fight and fight well. They also wanted to create better soldiers that can be easily produced. Hyru added. Jenny continued, they envisioned a lot of slaves, Macs and Maccabee slaves, that they would give to the Marsens and Greenos with very specific qualities. I believe the Marsens and Greenos are in on the project because some of the readings showed these 2 species talking to their scientists. They really planned way ahead and planned for the long haul. Roden said. There are underground structures in the slave planets where the scientists conduct their Dr. Moreau-like activities. Hyru said. Who is Moreau? Lachine asked and Linda whispered an answer. Ellie continued, we scan the 2nd planet where the criminals are holed up and we see the same human form giant with black skin armed to the teeth. We scanned this giant and we realized that it's a mix of a human Mac body and Maccabee appendages and a Mac head. It also has several implants, one in the head and one in each arm and each leg. A plate is visibly implanted in its chest, and this plate is actually a scanner, control module, and protection to its main heart. These creatures are not products of or will ever be a product of any form of natural reproduction. They do not have this capability. They were manufactured from the same basic tissue from the same basic genes that they determined to serve whatever purpose they wanted. Jenny explained. Disease. Do they exhibit some form of communicable disease? Andrew asked. Sir, no. If you look at some screens, there are scientists interacting with some of them in open ground without any hazmat suits on. Ellie answered. I want to know how far up the Maccabee leaderships have they recruited or have collaborated with the criminals. Bronny said. Jenny answered, we have identified several council members from the first and second colonies but not from the third. This is logical since the enemy planned to attack the first colony after the fourth, then move on to the second. The third colony would be the last in their agenda. We also found several business leaders connected with these council members. Tom, please show the council members. In one part of the floating screens showed several faces. These council members do not know it yet? Hilm asked. Jenny, beam all of the collaborating council members and their leaders out immediately and hold them in time boxes. I don't want them to be able to react and influence other people. Andrew said. They are now being beamed in time boxes. Tom said. With their disappearance they now know we are on to them. Jenny, you can expect some will try to negotiate or talk their way out. Please do not give them the ability to even talk. Just do your job of documenting their activities and identifying their partners in crime among the colonies. Bronny said. Yes, great leader Bronny. As soon as we feel that we have completed our mind reading and tracing all those involved, we will download all the data to your main data banks and they will become public record. Jenny said. I would suggest that we tag all those involved and beam them into the slave planet so they could be united with their creatures. Roden said. I agree, but strip them of all technology. Let them live like beasts and wild animals they are. With their planet empty, we can conduct investigations on the ground. Andrew said. That's fine until our justice system renders their punishment, which will in most cases be death or personality change. The war already made our people bitter and unable to forgive. This incredibly cruel activity is doubling the pain and shame we have suffered. Bronny said. Jenny, have you finished tagging those in the criminals' planet? Andrew asked. Yes, sir, all those in the criminals' planet have been tagged. We are immediately tagging as the connection is revealed in the mind-reading sessions. Very good. Tell the ships to start transporting them to the slave planet. Tell the Marines to clean the place up before our hackers and investigators beam down. Andrew said. We have started to beam those in the criminal planet to the holding planet. The ships will be finished in 3 hours. Yes, Andrew, they are stripped of any kind of technology with them before we beam them out. Tom said. Good. Now beam those underground scientists out of their hole and onto the holding planet. Then seal the main entrances to their labs from topside. Send the Marines in to clean up the place once you seal them. Then send the hackers and investigators to do their job. All in hazmat suits or crimson invisible. Andrew said. The underground scientists have all been tagged and are now being beamed to the holding planet. The ships have beamed large explosives at the main entrances. They will start blowing up the entrances in 5 minutes. Then nobody can get in or out except via TPs. Jenny said. What did the council say, Bronny? Roger asked. When I talked to them yesterday, I just told them what you were doing. Some of them were taken aback and some complained. Now all of them would start washing their hands off. And I would tell them who was involved and also tell them that if any of them are involved we would just beam them out and read their minds. They will surely not even object to this to show they are all in with us together in rooting out the criminals and collaborators. Bronny said. We have seen this before and we know healing comes in time but not always as fast as we want to. Andrew said. Sir, Ellie looked at Andrew, I have just received a report from a Mac in my ship that they found a slave planet at the fringes of the fourth colony towards the Marsons galaxies and they have actually started to send people out to the Marsons and Greenos. They have just entered the 3 communities and they look very ugly. Our people are beaming now and setting up refugee centers. This is another one. Different from the one Jenny had with the fiefdoms? Roden asked. Eric and Roger would have to get this intel, Tom. Andrew said. This is a different one and located at the fringes of the fourth colony. Ellie answered Roden. Probably a staging area before shipping the slaves out. Bronny said. The refugee operations in planet Sarbon have already started. I have communicated to the Maccabee fleet commanders to take over our operations. Linda reported. Ask the populace for volunteers and train them like we did to the Talonauts. Roden suggested. Yes, Roden, Tom, please. And tell the Talonot refugee leaders to spearhead the training of the locals. Ellie said. Yes, that's what we intend to do. Linda seconded. Bronny, Ellie, Roden, I think this war which has gone for so long must have affected the whole first to the fourth colonies deeply and across the spectrum of their society. It polarized a lot of good Maccabees. I wouldn't be surprised if there are still collaborators out there doing their thing and now in hiding. Andrew said. Yes, I could imagine. But that would be Bronny's job. Roden said. The problem is that there are 4 major councils the size of which depends on the colony. Most have been infiltrated. Some we know are sitting on the wall just waiting to join the enemy. Then there is the Grand Council representing the 4 colonies. Even the Grand Council representatives have not been spared. Our society is simply too large, but we have to do something. Bronny explained. Forgiveness and reconciliation must be your guide. The witch hunting will not end from the highest to the lowest levels. We have been through this before, and in some cases we impose as part of the deal that the victor must reconcile and draw up a peace treaty with the defeated. The healing will be faster if you have these 2 as your guide. Andrew said. I would agree with Andrew. We have their leaders, don't be unforgiving to those who were just following orders. Some were just trying to survive the war. Roden said. I will ask that the Grand Council convene so you can make your case in front of them. Be forceful and imposing. You have the upper hand at the moment and nobody will question or even counter you. Tomorrow. Bronny said. Good intel, Bronny. Thanks. Andrew said. No, thank you. I will go now. Bronny said.